Well, the snowblower just came back from repair, so why did I have to open it up? But first, a quick recap. So I purchased this thing in October from Direct Tool Canada, and then in December we finally got some snow. I used it twice before I could start doing some review videos, and then the Auger ended up bending. So I had to send it for a warranty because Direct Tool only covered the tool for exchange for 30 days, and it was way past the 30 days. Well, the facility to fix the tool from Ryobi is an hour and a half away from my house, so I had to drop it there. So this thing I was waiting, so I've been waiting since December all the way to now. We're in March. I finally got it back fixed. This took so long because Ryobi didn't have a Auger in stock, so they end up having to send a demo snowblower, and then the repair facility had to take the Auger out of that and put it and install it in mine. So they did install it. It's nice and straight. Trouble is, first thing when I got it back is the paddle, the rubber paddle were not adjusted right. So they were hitting inside here. So tuck, 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 tuck. So I fixed that. I had to trim the paddles. Mine was touching right here with this belt here in the corner. So now I just take the knife and then rub it through like this to just shave the belt nice and slow. And then I just keep checking. And I kept doing this until I was able to find out that it wasn't making any more noise and it wasn't touching anywhere. Now, I could have probably unscrewed those and tried to move the rubber a little bit. I didn't want to disturb any of this. I find it way easier to just shave a little bit of the rubber instead. Which just took a few minutes. It wasn't a big deal. And then I stirred it again. And now from the tack, 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 it was tick, 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 tick. So what's going on now? I had a vibration in there. So I had to open the right side panel. And then inside here, I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's some wiring over here. And then I put the tire wrap here, if you see this. To hold the wiring, it was knocking against the tubing that goes inside of the snowblower here, so it's just vibrating against it. Fixing the ground wire underneath the panel wasn't a big deal. This is just 4 T20 screws per panel on each side. So, but I had to open the second panel, and here's why. I now had a humming noise, and when I turned the panel over, what's this here? That's rubber dust. Rubber dust because there's a rubber belt in there. So yeah, that's the good old, you fix the louder noise, you hear the next loudest one after. Now keep in mind when you're looking at this that the snowblower is lying on his back. Okay, so first thing first was to inspect the belt here. Belt didn't look too damaged, so it wasn't too bad. Might as well learn some stuff here in the same time. So the belt, if you need a new belt, is a 6PG584. So this big gear here, that's for your auger. That's what's turning your auger. You have a wheel bearing in there. A bearing in there. I didn't get that far into it. The noise and the trouble wasn't coming from here. And it looks like when they replaced the auger here, they stripped the T20 bolt head. So that's going to be fun if I ever have to change that. But anyway, the trouble is not here. So you have your auger, you have your tensioner here, and that's is for your motor. The tensioner here, you can see it moving and extending on the spring. So that's a bracket that's holding this wheel here, and on the other side it pivots on this bolt here, and on the other side there's the spring that holds the tension on it. So when I was moving it like this, it was sticking before, So what I noticed was this bolt here was loose a little bit, so I was able to move this bracket back and forth like that. Well, I tightened this, and then the wheel didn't seem to be sitting right. It was sitting kind of crooked in an angle a little bit. So I tried to tighten it, and it was pretty tight already. So what was happening is the bearing that is inside this tensioner here was loose inside that wheel. So I had to take all this apart here. So in order to fix this bearing here and to make sure that the outer part of the bearing don't spin in the wheel and wear it down, I just had to use some retaining compound. The bearing is a 6002 SR. Now to take this apart, that's pretty simple. So you take a pair of vice grip, and then you're gonna pinch the end of your spring, and then while you're holding the vice grip, put your thumb or the top of your end here on top of that bracket so it doesn't try to lift the bracket in the same time. And then you just pull on your spring, you take it out of this groove here. There's another groove onto that bracket at the back here. After you take this out, those two bolts here, you're gonna remove that. And this is just a 1/2 inch socket. And after you get those two lock nuts off, there's a snap ring in here. Snap ring just fit in the back of those two little notch in here. And then the bearing will just slide right out of that wheel here. And then you just put a little bit of retaining compound into the inside of the wheel. Not too much, just a little line. And then you push your bearing back in and then reassemble. Here's the bearing and the snap ring, but I'm not going to remove the snap ring with the snap ring pliers right now because the bearing is set here as I put that retaining compound. So there's a big washer at the front here, and then the nut, and then the bearing goes into this part here that fits inside the bearing. And act as a spacer for the bracket too, and it'll just spin inside this. If you need to take this arm off here, you just unscrew that. So still need to be free. We'll still move a little bit because of the way that it's mounted on here. Well, actually, let's take a look. There's your nut, there's your washer, and on the back of this bracket here, there's also a spacer like into the bearing. A spacer just like this here, that fits right into the back. So on the opposite side of this, that keeps the space in between your bracket here. This is steel, it keeps the space in between this, and it actually can rotate in here. Yeah, put this back together. Don't forget your washer. Put this spacer here. Bearing back on top. Your washer on top. Now to put the spring, the easiest part is to put it at the bottom here first. So your spring goes with the outside of the spring towards the outside of the machine. Outside of the loop here. So you're gonna put your spring in here into the groove. Then you're gonna hold this down with your thumb and then just pull onto the plier with your hand underneath. And so you go into the groove here. Now most of the noises out of there, it should be fine. It's running smooth. So hopefully I can test it for next season. And then we can see how it throws the snow around. I'll see you in the next video.